It took me a long time to like the Monogatari series. It wasn't until I watched Monogatari's second season that I started to enjoy what the series had to offer. Now, with the second season of Owarimonogatari releasing, which is dedicated as the final season of the series, this is the perfect time to approach such a large series and ask the question, what is the appeal of the Monogatari series? First, I had to ask myself, why is the anime community's taste so bad? Then I scoured the internet to find as many explanations on why other people like and dislike the series as I could.
Oh fucking hell, can you not summarize this in under 5 minutes?
The foremost praise is the writing and character development. Nisemonogatari stands as the author of the original light novel, while the series composition and directing are done by Tatsuya Oishi and Tomoyuki Itamoda. All three craft each element of the series in a way that carefully outlines their vision, revolving around character interactions that are witty, clever, and loaded with exposition and puns. Each interaction capitalizes on a character's personality, while also subtly expanding on their character. As each character starts off as a very typical trope, characters develop beyond what they were at the beginning because of these character interactions. Characters are also, as End of the Scope pointed out, given time and development in order to show why they act this way, and in a way deconstructing these common character tropes into very real and flawed characters. While deconstruction has little effect on the actual story, other more modern concepts like self-awareness and referential humor play a huge role. Self-reference and self-awareness alike are used heavily for humor that involves Japanese and otaku culture, anime, manga, and more, while also serving as a storytelling method later with different characters narrating different arcs of the series. One of the most prominent pieces of humor is based on Japanese language and the numerous interpretations kanji can have, which ends up going over most American audiences' heads. And one character in particular is known for these types of jokes and references. This character is beloved by many in the community, touted as the best girl of the ages. Nadako. I'm just kidding. Hanekawa is best girl. You stupid motherfucker! Senjogahara is the actual character I'm referring to. She has received possibly the most amount of praise out of all other elements of the series. Her heavy backstory that relates well to her personality and always engaging dialogue creates a character that many people love and connect with. For many, she turns the series into something different, an anime about teen love and sacrifice, and in turn, people feel they can connect that much more with all the characters and especially Senjogahara. While people often talk about the characters and humor, I rarely hear people talk about storytelling and plot development. Well,
something called a plot comes along, I fall the fuck to sleep.
In reference to Bake, I agree with the sentiment here, and here's where I change my focus slightly. I said a lot of fair points about the series, but I don't necessarily agree with them all. While the writing is good and sometimes tremendously clever, the dialogue and especially monologues have a way of getting away from themselves. They have a way of being self-gratifyingly long, while also being incredibly obtuse. The main problem comes down to too much information being told to the audience to understand it all, or even remember it for the eventual reference back to it. Even if the information isn't important, the audience is still bombarded with information that they have to sort through. Take this scene for example. A couple of videos later, I found out that it's actually a reference to people's fascinations with others, and a setup to Senjogahara's very vague question of whether Araragi would ever date her. This is a good example of too much information that seems only tangentially related at first. Some of the dialogue, particularly in later seasons, have a way of feeling like I'm watching Nisemonogatari masturbating over a picture of Karen's feet, while he's vividly describing every crevice of it. In the same way dialogue varies in length and complexity, the pacing of the series changes wildly between episodes and season to season. Switching from several episodes with little plot development into episodes packed with exposition and multiple plot points presented. Let me describe what I mean by pacing. Pacing is the spread of important events made over the time span of a story. In other words, the spread of plot development. Bad pacing is when the story places these key elements of the story either randomly or too far apart from each other, creating long stretches of time without a key element driving characters through a scene. See Attack on Titan and the military training arc. This type of thing happens far too often in Monogatari. The first half of episode 10 in Bakemonogatari is nothing but exchanges with the entire character cast. It doesn't add to their characterization in a deeper way, except slightly Hanekawa. While I understand the irony of the scene being a literal interruption into Adaragi's life while he's trying to do something, I can't bear to feel the same way, especially when he doesn't feel bothered by the interruption. The series is hurt by a strangely distinct problem. It doesn't really get you to care about what's happening in the show. This wasn't necessarily a problem in Bake, but this plagues the later seasons as oddities and problems get more abstract. The story never creates a clear reason why the audience should care what's happening in the plot. Gigguk also noted this as well. He also makes a valid point about some arcs working largely independently of each other, and the arcs surrounding them only do so coincidentally rather than as a series of interconnected events. This varies as the series goes on, as different parts start to supplement the others, but certain arcs still struggle to have a good flow and a meaningful plot development that anchors the audience's interest. However, my biggest problem with the writing is how characters are developed. Not every main character gets a story or a developed backstory that gives them as much depth as they need. What Under the Scope said is true. Most characters are given ample time to show the audience they aren't just tropes, but others don't have the same luxury. Take for example, Kanbaru Suruga. She receives a backstory and an oddity that makes her love for Senjukahara feel both innocent and complex. However, this backstory doesn't actually relate to her character as a hypersexual, quirky sports girl, and she doesn't develop out of this archetype through most of the series. In a show so devoted to explaining why characters act the way they do, it's confusing why it doesn't do this for her. So I'm only left with her personality traits and her voice, which as I said before, don't make for a real, human-like character. The Monogatari series is not, however, devoid of human-like characters. It's full of them. So now let's stop leveraging critiques at this series and start praising this piece of shit Vietnamese puppet show. First, I love the way Nisemonogatari uses multiple narrators throughout the story. It's something unique in anime, and it offers a much-needed change of perspective from Adaragi. Each perspective feels distinctly different from the last, and offers the audience an alternate look at the world we're used to seeing from Adaragi's point of view. The change in perspective reveals inconsistencies in the way a narrator may tell the story, as each one is a character with their own biases and personality. The best example of this being the highly cited Hitagi End, narrated by Kaiki Deishu. He narrates this arc in a voice typical of his character. However, at the start, he declares that he's an unreliable narrator, kicking off the story with a wild twist that makes you question every event taking place. It was my first hint to actually consider the accuracy of previous narrators, giving the story and its iterations a much deeper impact. Which is something special to Monogatari itself. The numerous seasons and arcs, which vary in quality and style, are all part of this single series. And as Kenji the Enji pointed out in his video on Unreliable Narration, some of the later arcs help to recontextualize other parts of the story, making it a bit more cohesive. You can see this between Bakemonogatari and Kizu Monogatari. Kizu serves as the prequel to the entire series, thus leading us into Bake. This nonlinearness allows elements of the story told later to inform events watched earlier. This, along with the art style, took a while to like, but I soon came to enjoy both, and I appreciate the amount of experimentation and absurdity in the visual direction. While I don't think I could ever say the animation is perfect, I can say that the experimentation of technique and presentation is impressive, and it's incredibly effective in the most recent season, Owarimonogatari. Tamayuki Itamura refined his direction and storyboarding skills to create some of the most compelling, disorienting, and interesting moments in the series. Visually, it's the most emotionally involved Shaft has gotten into the Monogatari series, which is partially why Owari is one of my favorite seasons, and this series became one of my favorites. Really, you could probably trace the reason for making this video to Owarimonogatari. While it definitely contains some of the things that I don't like about the series, the occasional misstep in pacing, tired monologues, and occasionally spotty animation quality, this season stands above the rest because it finally presents everything that Monogatari is. Excellently written arcs with engaging characters that challenge Adaragi and let us see a different side of him. The stories are compelling in their own right, but also manage to advance the series, and it finally gives some much needed depth to Adaragi. Up until now, he came across as the usual sacrificial hero, I'll save you cause you're hot trope, who experienced little to no consequences for his actions. However, we finally see how both his perspective and personality have some consequences that hurt those around him in a meaningful way. Owari also benefits highly from its slight change in form, which in some ways is similar to Hitagi End. In Hitagi End, the use of mystery as if characters were trying to solve a crime helped provide clear plot development that also tied into character dialogue. Even when dialogue wasn't exactly relevant, you could get through it knowing that there was something to get out of it later on. This is the main emphasis in Owari, and it plays to Nisemonogatari's strengths as he came from a background of writing mystery light novels such as Death Note Another Note, the Los Angeles BB murder case, and Zadagoto. This comes through well as Owari's mystery and plot development add a sense of direction and action that propelled the story forward, while also providing an emotional and insightful looks at the world we live in. While I may break down everything into story, characters, writing, pacing, and all that, I feel like Monogatari is much more than just that. It's a story about people, their problems, their time in life, their delusions, and their answers. None of these characters are perfect, but they still connect with those of us who can see ourselves in them. It is a surprisingly deep emotional core that's not really about romance, the supernatural, school, or lollies. It's about the person, and it's about you, the viewer.
バカじゃないそれは嘘と真実のラインを消すためだけにただ踊り続けているだけのバカ野郎だと君は言った嫌い